Can you stop cursing, please? I just hit the stream button.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
You did not.
I did.
You did not.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh God, are you serious?
no, I didn't
Uh,
catch that last part, but it was quite fun. Seems like I never left this seat, Paul. We did the Friday
all right.
film room. I'm back here again with you. Thank you for joining us this morning, everybody, for our live feed, our rare live feed over on YouTube. So we're going to be breaking down the Buffalo Bills versus the Cleveland Browns, set to take place tomorrow. Y'all up early? Yes, Derbies. We are definitely up early today. We're giving you guys content among content among content. So I can't wait. I can't wait to start breaking this thing down. Paul, right out of the gate, I'm pretty much very happy to find out the news out of the Cleveland Browns camp. Just I think it was like 3 hours ago. At least that's when I got it. Oliver Vernon will not be suiting up against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah,
So tell me a
yeah,
little bit
that's a
about
big
that.
one. Yeah, that's a big one. So the Browns have, let's see here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 players listed on their injury report for this week. And it's for a variety of different issues, right? It's not like Washington where it's like knee, 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 knee. It's not like that. But it is stating here that, Oliver Vernon hasn't practiced all week because of his knee. Ricky Seals-Jones, who some of you might know as the former tight end of the Arizona Cardinals under Bruce Arians and a few other teams.
Yes.
He also has been a do not participate all week with a knee. Eric Murray, one of their safeties, was a do not participate all week with a knee. Murray and Vernon are both out. Myles Garrett was actually also listed on the injury report effective on Friday, also with a knee. So there must have been a little tenderness. He was a full participant anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but he was sort of a late addition to the injury report. Oliver Vernon's just an animal, isn't he? But one of the good pieces of news about this is that defensive front is a little scary. That front four against Cleveland, specifically Myles Garrett and Oliver Vernon. So what you're doing here is you're taking that right side where you have been platooning Ty Nsekhe and Cody Ford, and now you're not really as nervous about it, right? Because Oliver Vernon's an animal in the run. He's an animal in when you're trying to go into pass pro sets. Having him not on the field is a big win for whatever right tackle is happening to play for the Bills this week.
Yeah, Paul. And we had talked about it a little bit as far as talking about him going against Dawkins. What are you going to do? Are you going to chip? Are you going to have a tight end? Are you going to try to do a bunch of all these other things? I think the matchup with Ty Nsekhe is a little bit better against Myles Garrett, just because Myles happens to be an animal. I mean, he is extremely fast, but he's more of a power guy. He's not really a Montez Sweat type. I run this fast. I'm gonna run around you all day. So
Well, I respectfully, I hear the direction you're going with this. I
yeah,
respectfully disagree.
okay.
I think you see Myles Garrett move all across the defensive line with no Oliver Vernon, right? So since
Oh, with
Oliver
no,
Vernon,
I'm just talking straight up with Vernon. That's
yeah,
that's the matchup you're gonna see. But he could. You think you're gonna move him all over the line?
well, they have to now, right? So before with Oliver Vernon and Myles Garrett, I mean, you're not moving Myles Garrett because you've got Oliver Vernon. You're not moving Oliver Vernon because you've got Myles Garrett. Those guys can lock in at the left and the right spot and just go play football. Not going to be the same with Oliver Vernon not there. So the Browns are going to try and get their matchup that they want. And we'll probably see Garrett move around a little bit early to see what matchup they really want. So if we see Cody Ford over on the left side, I guarantee you're going to see Myles Garrett there sooner or later. If you see
Cody Ford on
yeah,
the
right,
left.
right there. No, on the right.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying.
defensive
So
left. Okay.
yeah, they're gonna move Myles Garrett around. So if you see Cody Ford in and they're looking at thinking it's a pass set, Cody Ford right now is graded out like a 36 by Pro Football Focus if you think that's a thing. So you're gonna take that matchup. If they see Ty Nsekhe in there, you pick your
Well,
poison between Nsekhe and Dawkins.
well, according to Freddie Kitchen, he doesn't really pay too much attention to stats. So
Yeah.
I don't think he looks
Oh,
at Pro
yeah.
Football Focus.
No, I'm sure he doesn't. Sure, there's a lot of things he doesn't look at.
Oh, like his team. I
Yeah.
want Ty Nsekhe. John Patrick comes down. I want Ty Nsekhe in. I don't blame you for that assessment. I mean, Ford has struggled a little bit, but he's a rookie. I mean, Naseki's what, 35? He has experience in this league. He has experience. He's a bigger dude. So that's one of the things that the Buffalo Bills will have to contend with in this platooning of Ford and Nasecki. I think it's very interesting. I just don't know what the end game is for it. I know you want Ford to mature and get better. However, I don't know if that's the number one thing you want to do right now with both of those guys.
Right. Well, I mean, Cody Ford was out last game, and
Yeah.
everything seemed to go okay. Right. It's having a little consistency at that position is not a bad thing. And Sean McDermott had mentioned to Matt Perino in an article that he posted this week that there's good teamwork on the right side between Ford and Nasecki. I don't think there's any animosity building there, which is probably the reason why they're able to move those guys in and out. You have to have two professionals to be able to say, okay, you're out this play, right? It's like you see it with running backs all the time where, they refuse to come off the field. Nasecki and Ford work well together right now, but you have to wonder how long that's going to go for, right? Because at some point you have to lock in and say, this is really what we're going to do for the rest of this season. Yeah. And then you have to reach the button next year. It's not like both these guys aren't under contract next year. They both are. So, and Derpies brings up a great point, says, isn't the Bills injury report basically blank this week? Yeah, Kurt Coleman and Kevin Johnson were the only two on it, but they haven't had a limited participant since Wednesday.
No.
So Coleman and Kevin Johnson were both full participants, which is great news for the defense. I really like Kevin Johnson.
Yes.
So I like him in those sub packages. So that's great news for Buffalo.
Oh my God. Caracas comes in and says, just don't talk negative about Ford. His parents are on every social media platform. And they
thought we traded Zay Jones.
That's good. That is funny. Speaking of Zay Jones, the Thursday night game, I was talking about, and you're gonna make fun of my age here, but it was so weird seeing an Oakland Raiders number 12 jersey without Stabler on the back of it. It was it's just weird. You know what I mean? It seems like his number should have been retired a long time ago. Okay, so Daniel Carson comes in. What is Lee Smith's role on this team? Seriously, just curious.
Just jump right over the hyphenated last name. Ready to just jump right over
I've been doing it for 2 weeks. I can't pronounce it. I'm not going to butcher the guy's name.
All right. If he gives a thumbs up in the chat, then I won't criticize you for it anymore.
Of course, because I'm the antagonist, apparently, of this group. So he's going to give me a thumbs down and hammer me for it.
And Chaz, I see your comment. Don't worry. We'll get to you in just a second.
Yeah, we will.
Daniel. So tell me about Daniel's.
He says... seriously, just curious. He seems to get the occasional touchdown with Lee Smith. So the thing about it, you're talking about how the Bills are starting to get healthy. The whole team's starting to get so healthy. Now, who becomes the sacrificial lamb that gets inactivated on Sunday? So it's Lee Smith. Are they comfortable with Kroft's blocking ability? He did fantastic, sealing the edges. Knox needed a little bit more help. The wide receivers are doing phenomenal in blocking for the run game, which will tie into Chaz Crutcher. What do y'all think of Devin Singletary? All these things intertwined. Who ends up on the chopping block as far as who's inactivated on Sunday?
Yeah, so a couple things get me here, right? So I anticipate no TJ Yeldon, right? Because the Bills seem to be okay with only going with two running backs if they're carrying Frank DeMarco as active, right? So they seem to be all right with that. That doesn't seem to bother them going with two running backs. So we've seen TJ Yeldon inactive before. I think this is the game where you see TJ Yeldon inactive. But I think we're going to see Robert Foster inactive again because Duke Williams is healthy. And I really think Duke Williams has the edge over Robert Foster. I know he was inactive last game. He was coming off a shoulder injury. So I feel like that might have played a little bit of it. But I also think they wanted to give Foster a chance. And I don't think he changed their minds. You'll probably see Duke Williams active this week. Isaiah McKenzie, we saw as a real critical piece of that offense. And I think against the Browns, that's another team that you can use that jet motion against. So McKenzie will probably be active. So that means Sweeney's likely inactive because Lee Smith, I'm sorry, guys, he's playing too many snaps to just be inactive because we don't like him. That's just all there is to it.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about, I had the stats here for a second. I don't know where I put them, but The second leading tackler for the Browns, it was Jermaine Whitehead, and he's gone now, so he's not there anymore. He was the second leading tackler. Um, your leading tackler, I think it was Joe Schobert, for the middle linebacker. So once again, you're coming in against a team that's the middle linebacker as their leading tackler, which happens a lot. But this guy's flying all over the field, especially with rookie Mack Wilson next to him. Playing the will. So if you run a lot of those jet motions, you're able to get the guys out of the box, get them moving one way or the other, and which also helps your offensive line. If you want to run off tackle to the left, what you do is you run jet motion to the right, get those linebackers to shift, which helps the line in order to go over the block. And it's actually a great thing to do if it's played out right. And I was actually in the film room yesterday. I was proven wrong by Mike. He actually told me that there are certain benefits to running off tackle toward the jet motion that you run. Like, he wasn't a big proponent of bringing guys over to where you are. However, if you're pulling a guard and a center around there, the only guy that you have one-on-one is a corner instead of a linebacker with the running back. So it benefits you quite a bit. Somewhat. He still agrees with me that you run jet motion away from where you want to run the ball, but did you muted your mic, didn't you, Paul? You got to unmute it.
Yeah, there we go.
I hear you talking, but like no one else can.
Sorry about that. So just count update real quick between Dawson Knox and Lee Smith. Lee Smith has played 41% of offensive snaps this season. Dawson Knox has actually played 59% of offensive snaps this season. So there's a pretty big difference between the two. So I'm very fascinated to see what they do. But I think, Lee Smith goes as Devin Singletary goes. And that kind of gets to the next question. So I'm super curious what you think here, right?
Yeah.
Lee Smith was brought in to be a blocker. And we've seen Devin Singletary unleash the fury, Mitch, a few times. Unleash the fury.
Unleash it.
And I think as Bills fans, we were all really excited about what we saw last game, right? Because we've been asking for more Devin Singletary, and we finally got it. But I have a feeling like Lee Smith is a pretty big component of that, right? Because in order to get those guards and tackles to pull in a zone blocking scheme, you still have to be able to seal the edge a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. I think Dawson Knox versus Lee Smith. Lee Smith is able to seal so the guards and tackles and centers can pull around him. Versus Dawson Knox. So even though Knox is a higher snap percentage count, as you see more Devin Singletary, I think you're going to see more Lee Smith.
And I like to respectfully disagree, Paul.
I love that. Yeah, go ahead. Disagree, please.
I'd like to disagree because as we were watching the film room a lot last night, you started to see Andre Roberts coming in from a slot position just off the wing of the formation. He was blocking down. Knox was blocking down. Croft is now blocking down. So you have these things in place where you could circumvent not having an extra quote unquote tight end out there. Extra lineman. He's 270. I mean, let's call Lee Smith what he is. He's a lineman with hands for crying out loud. So you don't have to necessarily sacrifice a position for him. And I know I'm not really coming at this very objective because, I've seen the penalties. I've seen some of the things that have been going on with Lee Smith. I think with Croft and Knox, you're good. You're going to be good. But Dable still likes running those 3 tight end sets, especially when you get near the goal line. But if you have a Duke Williams, you won't need a 3 tight end set. Not to say that you're going to line up Duke Williams on the line. Basically what I'm saying is that you're able to spread guys out so not so many people are in the box and you're not bringing everybody to Singletary. So circumventing it with a wide receiver, the development of Knox and Croft playing as well as he's doing, although you don't know. I mean, you don't have to cut Smith. You just make him inactive. That's fine. I mean, if Croft ends up getting another injury, boom, Smith is right back in there. But two things. The development of Sweeney, we haven't seen Sweeney in a while. That's one. Two is you still have Croom. Croom was brought up in the chat. Like, do we forget?
Who was that asked if Jason Croom? Red Eyes, are you going to see Croom come back this year? So here's the thing with Jason Croom that the Bills are doing it's a little shady. Okay, Jason Croom and I have this on good authority. Jason Croom is healthy enough to play, right? At this point, he's healthy enough to play. However, the team won't clear him, right? Because they could just declare you as not passing your physical. We saw Washington do this with Trent Williams. They didn't pass his physical. So Jason Croom is still technically on the injured reserve list, right? Although he is, from what I've heard, he does feel he's healthy enough to play at this point. Now, with that being said, Jason Croom becomes healthy. What do? You either have to cut him because you don't have a spot on the team for him, right? Because how many teams are going to carry 6 tight ends, 5 tight ends? You don't really see that, right? The Bills would have to carry 5 tight ends, which means they're probably losing a wide receiver. Well, with it's, I think there's a conversation to be had with Dable, because Dable really likes tight end heavy sets. So there could be a conversation to be had with Dable having 5 tight ends on your roster. But the truth of the matter is you're probably losing a wide receiver then if you're going to carry another tight end.
Especially the style of tight end that he is as well, too. He's not really a banger inside. He's more of like a wideout anyway.
Receiver. Right. So what do you do with Jason Croom? Well, you could waive him and try and put him on your practice squad. He does have practice squad eligibility, but he's not going to make it. He's going to get scooped up, and Buffalo knows that.
You think so?
Either it's injured. Yeah, I think so. A talented guy, an athletic guy like that. Everybody sees Darren Waller, tearing it up in Oakland. And guys, Darren Waller spent 3 seasons on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad, right? So let's just call it what it is. That Darren Waller has reinvigorated the need for, hey, there's athletic people that can play tight end. Let's go find some. And Jason Croom fits that bill. So, I mean, 6'5", 240, he's not a little guy.
So few of us in the world.
Oh, God, here we go. Listen, your 240 and his 240 are very different.
Shut up. I agree.
Fact.
He's 20 years younger than me. What do you want me to do?
Just one of those guys where that's right. He sure is. Unfortunately with Croom, it's a roster game. If the roster was thin like it was last year, I think Jason Croom would be active right now.
I agree.
I don't really feel like they are in any rush to get him back, and having to make a move with him, it forces their hand, right? Because they're going to have to waive him and try and put him on the practice squad, or they're going to have to cut somebody. And I don't really feel like they're comfortable cutting any of these wide receivers yet. Because that's likely where the cut would have to happen.
Plus, you talk about a guy who, if the Bills start to click, I'm saying offensively.
Yeah.
You talk about, number one, in your own division, Belichick just eats tight ends. Like, he just loves tight ends. Like, you could give him as many as he wants. He'll just, number one, that's number one. Number two, Croom has played in this offense for 2 years.
Right.
You telling me that if he's released, which goes out to the entire league, the whole league's going to know what the Bills are trying to do. They're trying to slide him to their practice squad and trying to keep him on the roster. But that's a valuable piece to anybody who would want to find out what the Bills are doing offensively. And he's been in that offense for 2 years. So it's just a little bit, it's not so much the talent level, which, like you, I agree with you. 6'5", 240. Look at how the success of Waller and some of these other tight ends that are just, they're not really down blockers like they were back in the 80s and stuff like that, where they caught like 3 passes a game. They're very athletic guys. He would get picked up on that point alone. But you add in the fact that he's got 2 years in this system, and with the Bills being 6-2 and some of their opponents coming up, you think that he would get picked up somewhere for that reason. Right. So,
and Ryan Rauber asks, how can we have reached the halfway point of the season and Foster has 0 catches? You take a look at Jason Croom and Robert Foster, and their fates might really be tied together. If the Bills decide, hey, we're past the trade deadline with Robert Foster, we've put enough on film for teams to go, maybe not for us, right? Maybe if they bring Croom back, Foster's the guy that goes, and they just look to see if he can slide into the practice squad. I personally think Robert Foster has still some trade value left, but you're past the window to be able to do anything with him. So if they had traded Foster, then Croom may have been the guy that they brought up, and they moved Foster for a pick. But unfortunately, Robert Foster, what they use him for is just so apparent and telegraphed that teams just go, okay, we need safety help. That's it. But we did see them put John Brown and Robert Foster on opposite sides of the formation a couple games ago. I would love to see that again. And I'd like you to speak on that for just a second. what happened in that look when they finally rolled it out.
Well, the first look that they had, it was against the Eagles. So they had Brown and Foster. It was near the end of the half, which is initially why I loved it, because if you were able to do that and test it out before the half, you could see how the Eagles react to it and therefore make adjustments for that second half and run that. However, Foster only ran, I think, 7 or 8 plays that game, unfortunately. Maybe it's he's not getting it. I mean, we talked about this in the preseason where he was missing routes and doing all that stuff. So the fact of putting Brown and Foster on the opposite sides of the formation, you're going to have the defense make a choice. And the defense is going to have to choose, okay, do we play over the top of both these guys because they both can kill us? You're talking about John Brown, who has 42 catches, 33 of them for first down so far this year. So he is a guy who you have to account for both short and deep, but I'm not talking about like going 50 yards downfield. I'm talking about in that 15 to 30 range. That's where he likes to work and operate. And he can even run routes underneath too for you. So, right. But with the presence of McKenzie and Beasley, those guys are really occupying those short routes, and you got Knox running the clearing routes. However, if you put Foster and him on the opposite side, now, what you just said, you talk about telegraphing it. You use that to your advantage if you're Dable. So what you do is, okay, if I'm going to put Foster on the field, I know they're going to account a safety over there. So they're going to have a corner and a safety on that side. I could plan the rest of my routes on the other side of the field according to what they're going to do right there. So if I run Dawson Knox on the other side, like let's say I have Foster on my left and I have Brown on my right, and I put Knox next to Brown, and I put Beasley next to Foster. I run Foster straight up the field. He's going to take a corner and a safety with him. Now I run Knox completely right at the other safety that's covering over the top of Brown. Okay, so both safeties are occupied now. They're not going to be in the box to jump anything. So I can, with my next 2 routes, I have Beasley and Brown to go anywhere I want. I can run them underneath in crossers. I can run a slant and go. I can put them both as a levels concept on the right-hand side of the formation. I can do a bunch of different things now because of the presence of Foster. He has no catches, but he still garners attention based on what he did last year and how he was able to be productive last year.
Right. And I think one of the things that, you take a breath now?
I could. I need more coffee.
So I think one of the things, and the play that you're referring to in the Eagles was a comeback route to John Brown, but that's not what the play design really was. That was a read route by John Brown. I don't really think they give Foster the ability to adjust routes like that. I don't think that's really something they're asking of him, which is probably the reason he's not playing much, because this offense depends on read routes. And we could talk about, we're a little concerned about Allen's timing. He always waits till somebody's open. It might be because he's not totally positive the route adjustments these receivers are making yet. And I think that's something that will get better. So we talk about Allen being late on a lot of throws. Dable's system runs a ton of read routes. So you need veteran receivers in order to do it. Hence why you bring in Beasley. Hence why you bring in Brown. But the quarterback and the wide receiver have to have, not only just great chemistry, but they have to be seeing the same things. And I don't know if Allen's seeing things as quickly as some of the receivers when they're adjusting routes, and that's why some things are late a little bit. But with that being said, Foster's not on the field, and you have to just give the assumption at this point that it's because his route adjustments aren't up to what Dable wants as a standard. And other guys can make those adjustments. So I have to feel like that's likely what it is. And Bills fan 7883 brings up a great point. Says if Foster didn't have that undrafted contract, he'd be gone already. And the Bills control Robert Foster at league minimum this year. They control him at league minimum next year. He's going to be a restricted free agent the season after that. So you still can get him for basically nothing. Mm-hmm. And that garners a lot of trade value because he's under team control. And there's enough talent there. And there's enough of a matchup problem to not give up on him. That's why you're seeing Robert Foster get the leash that he's getting. But every game you just seem to get a little bit, that leash seems to get a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. You specifically talked about it. Hey, what's up, Ronald? How you doing? You specifically talked about it in the offseason. Like, listen, some of the players that were here on a 6-10 team may not be good enough to be on a team with, playout. So you want to talk about Robert Foster, who made such a splash last year, Jason Croom, who was your starting tight end, and Zay Jones. Those are your 3 top pass catchers last year.
Yeah,
and none of them are here.
That's absolutely right. I'm so glad you brought that up. You're absolutely right. So
So,
everything that was a mainstay of the offense last year was Sean McCoy, gone.
yeah.
Jason Croom on IR. Robert Foster can't catch a football this season. He's not even getting targets. Zay Jones was your leading receiver. He's been traded. Everything that hold on, big finger quotes, was working last year is not here anymore.
Yeah.
And that's because they said this isn't good enough. Where we are isn't good enough.
6-10 is not good enough. I want to just defer right back to the chat real quick because Caracas comes in and he says the Bills' offense is like Tuesday afternoon. You made it past Monday, but there's still too many days until the weekend. I thought that was phenomenal. I'm gonna put that on a T-shirt. I swear to God, I want to put that on a T-shirt. But if we're getting back to Cleveland now you're talking about. I just want to go to the depth chart really quick. So you got Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams, two guys who are phenomenal cover guys. I believe Greedy Williams was LSU, wasn't he?
Yes.
If I'm pretty good, yeah, he was LSU. So we have two LSU corners going against these guys come Sunday. So you got Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward. Phenomenal corners in their own right. Then you have Morgan Burnett and Demarius Randall. Demarius Randall was on the injury report. We don't know what his status is for Sunday, but Eric Murray, who backs up Demarius Randall, is out. Is more than likely out. So you got the two former Green Bay guys at safety. The Bills have a former Green Bay guy, and then you got the two corners, Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams. Do you think that Foster's role, this could be the game where Foster's role increases in what he wants to do? Or do you think this is a game where, I think you may have mentioned earlier, Duke Williams' size and physicality will overtake the secondary for the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, I think that's probably a more likely scenario. And Jason James had mentioned, why doesn't Dable give Foster some easy and quick throws to get his confidence up and then set up the deep ball? And that's normally what you would do. You want to set plays up, right? You can't just bring Robert Foster out and say, okay, go run a go or a 9 route. For those of you that like to refer to it as either, go run that route. Everybody knows what he's out there to do. Like, you need to change the narrative of what you're expecting from Robert Foster, and Dable hasn't done that, right? But would you really want Robert Foster's receptions underneath to eat into Beasley's receptions underneath? Is that really, because it's gonna cost somebody somewhere. You're either gonna take touches away from Singletary at this point. You're gonna take looks away from John Brown. You're gonna take something away. So what exactly do you want to take away to get Robert Foster more involved in this game? But remember, you're just going to be setting plays up in order to get him deep, because right now it's pretty apparent. I don't think Dable's willing to invest that just yet. So I'm 100% with you. I have a feeling Duke Williams ends up lining up for this football game. We see Robert Foster inactive because of what Duke Williams brings. Plus, if the Bills want to run the football, Duke Williams is a much better run blocker than Robert Foster is. So we'll see what happens, but I would anticipate Duke being active instead of Foster.
I mean, that's a point of contention amongst many Bills fans too, is the fact that Beasley is not seeing as many looks. I mean, you got to give, I'd say you give 10 to 13 targets or looks or targets to Brown. I think you got to give 7 to 10 to Beasley, and you want to mix in some screen plays, maybe throw a tight end dart or whatever, anything like that, but. I think you need to get Beasley a little bit more involved in the offense, and then, like you said, who do you sacrifice if you want to give Robert Foster the ball? Now, the thing with Foster is I think it has to be tiered with Foster, and by tiered I mean, okay, everyone knows he can run the go route or he's going to run the go route. How do you want to open up Foster on the go route? Well, you have him run specific routes that aren't goes. You have him run a dig. You have him run an out. You have him run a comeback. Not necessarily throwing him the ball, but just have him run those routes, because what you're putting on film is him not running 9s. So then you have a cornerback that has to account for him, and maybe you throw him one. Maybe you throw him 1 or 2 in the game. Right. So what you're telling me now, you're going to throw a 10-yard dig to Robert Foster. Then you're going to throw a 7-yard comeback to Robert Foster. Okay, if he's able to run those routes, which I believe he's fully capable of doing, then you do that. What does that do? That opens up the deep pass. because now teams have to do that. Now you're only sacrificing 2 targets to him in that respect. So you're not taking too much away from Beasley, Brown, and the rest of the offensive scheme and the philosophy that you want to do. But
Right.
I believe Beasley, the reason why he's going to be so effective is that teams came out early, and Beasley was getting targeted early because teams were coming out in zone. Now teams are coming out in man and punching the wide receivers at the line.
Right.
So he's starting to get off of the some of these guys a little bit later in the route, but then at that point, Allen has already made his decision to move on. So Beasley could be the primary in a lot of these routes. Just Allen's getting off of him too fast because he thinks he's initially covered, and we've seen it many times on the film where Beasley will break open after Allen's already gone.
Beasley's never not covered.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think there brings up an interesting point, specifically against Cleveland. The Life of John says, is Isaiah McKenzie a healthy scratch this week?
Ooh.
And Tricky Finch says, I'm a McKenzie fan. The guy always makes plays regardless of how he gets the ball. And think about it this way. So we saw a bunch of jet sweep concepts against the Redskins last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is a better way to hold Myles Garrett in check than to run jet sweeps his direction with McKenzie, because that holds him in a pass rush situation, right? Because if you run the jet sweep to that side, wherever Myles Garrett is, then that holds him from having to come in on the pass rush, right? Because he has to respect the jet sweep. So it's a great way to neutralize him, get McKenzie going in the flat, and it gives, their most dominant defensive player, it gives them a little bit of pause on some play action.
Yeah, and I think because of the success of the screen game that you ran last week, that'll hold him as well because he has to account for that. But
right.
I don't mind if you didn't want to run the jet. Let's say McKenzie for some reason was inactivated. I don't mind running if you don't have to run the jet. You chip him with Gore because Gore will know what to do. You have a tight end on that side. You have Andre Roberts come in and block down. Like he's not gonna I know it sounds silly. He's not gonna block Myles Garrett, but he's gonna slow him up. That's all you want. That's all you want to do is slow him up. You run that you run play action to the left side of the line and have Allen boot out. Or you know what I mean? And then you run Beasley underneath. Dable loves that play. You motion Beasley across and you run him back across the formation where he just motioned, and you try to run him in the flat, and that'll hold Garrett. But you got a lot of talent on this defensive side of the football for Cleveland. They haven't been extremely. They haven't had a lot of success, albeit they're 2-6. But you got Sheldon Richardson as a defensive tackle. You got Myles Garrett. Obviously, Vernon's out. Chris Smith, who is the backup for Vernon, he's a high motor guy. He is a speed rusher. So you're putting a speed rusher now on Dawkins' side. Whereas, it gives you a level of concern, even though this guy was an undrafted free agent and a practice squad guy. I think he's like 6 foot 260. He's a speed guy. So that you have to take that into consideration.
Well, and let's not forget that this is also a very undisciplined Cleveland Browns football team, right? So if you take a look at just their splits as a team, the Cleveland Browns have, the Bills have committed 61 penalties this season, right? The Cleveland Browns have committed 75. That's a big difference, right? That's a big difference. 16 of those have been for first downs. So that tells you, and that number is not very high because the Bills have given up, of their 61 penalties, 19 have been for first downs and given up first downs. So here's the deal. The Browns, they're a very undisciplined football team, very undisciplined. They play hot, they play heavy. And here's the problem with undisciplined football teams. If the Browns can get on a roll early, they become very dangerous, right? And we talked about this even before the season started. You were going to get whatever Cleveland Browns showed up the few weeks prior, right? If they were winning, they're going to be a tough football team to beat. If they're going to be losing, then they could be an easy football team to beat. But if they get up on you in the first quarter, this could be a real tough game to try and claw your way back into.
Oh, I agree 100% because they are a very high emotional team, and one of the unknowns that you have is Hunt coming back. Does he split carries with Chubb? Do they play in a lot of two-back sets? We saw the two-back sets be killer for the Bills against the Eagles, and I know the combination of Howard and Sanders isn't Hunt and Chubb, but we don't know how that dynamic's going to play out because he was suspended. It hasn't been anything like that. The play action games I think is going to be concerning for me. The physicality of the wide receivers for Cleveland will be a concern. It all starts with the run though. I firmly believe it's all going to start with the run up front. If they're not able to neutralize Chubb, neutralize Hunt, it could be a very, very long day for this defense. And like you said, the Buffalo Bills offense is boring, and it's nickel and dime, and it's going to just plod its way down the field. It's not a very high octane offense that you could score quick. So if you get down maybe 10, maybe 14, depending on how much time, like if you get down 14 in the first quarter, okay, you can make some adjustments. You can come back and claw your way out of that. But if you get down 17 at the half, you have to hope for the first 3 possessions for Cleveland to go 3 and out or have a turnover for you to have a possibility of getting in this game. And that's the one thing. The Cleveland Browns turned the ball over 11 times in the last 3 games. So the Buffalo Bills aren't really known for turning the ball, causing a lot of turnovers. So they have to do that. Right. They have to do that.
Right. The Browns will give you opportunity, right? They've proven the last 2 games. They're going to give you opportunity to get that football. But the Bills haven't really capitalized on a lot of those opportunities either.
No.
Yeah. And again, it's their skill position players. Nick Chubb is fumbling the football at a rate that you really if he wasn't turning out the yardage, you'd be really frustrated with Nick Chubb. Yeah. You have Kareem Hunt coming into this game, who's got no tape in this Cleveland offense.
0.
You got preseason tape on Kareem Hunt, and that's it. So there's a huge X factor because you don't know what he's going to do and what his responsibilities are going to be in the Cleveland game. You have OBJ. Odell's dropping the few targets that he's getting. And he's not a guy that's quiet when he's not getting targeted enough. So I really expect Odell to have freaked out in the meeting rooms this week because I am 100% positive he feels the reason they've only won 2 games is because he's not getting the football enough. I'm completely convinced.
Speaking of wide receivers not getting enough passes, we have a Zay Jones battle going on in the chat. And I don't even want to go near it.
How is it?
I'm scared.
Yeah,
there's some Zay Jones chatter. Every time you bring him up, Paul, way to go. No, I'm just kidding.
Not my fault. Not my fault. Jason asked, do you guys think our D-line can get to Baker with just rushing 4?
Now, I think so. I think you don't really need to get to him, though.
I will be honest, Baker has not done a great job of manipulating the pocket this season.
Oh, I have plays. I disagree. I have some plays.
You're talking. I'm saying this season.
At the beginning, overall,
okay, yeah. He was a nightmare. He was everywhere, right? And if you could get Baker, if you can get Baker on step 6, where he was out of a 5-step, and you could make him start to move the pocket. His hips were terrible.
Yes.
There were a lot of mechanical problems with Baker at the beginning of the season. He's really sewn a lot of that stuff up. But it's something that's he's learning still to manipulate the pocket in the NFL, and it's a new thing to him because at the beginning of the season, he was bad. He was real bad.
Yeah.
It is improving, but can you get to him with only 4? I think that kind of plays to what he's working with and learning how to manipulate the pocket. He looked great last week, stepping up when he had to. I don't know if you can get to him with just 4. Because Tremaine's starting to bother me a little bit. Yeah.
In the play action game.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting, right? He's starting to bother me a little bit. I think Baker's going to be able to take advantage of that. I don't think you can just bring 4 all day and get
But one affects the other, Paul. I think if the Cleveland's able to run the ball, then I worry about Tremaine. If they're not able to run the ball and the Bills are able to stop that, then you're just going to have 7 guys in coverage and Baker's going to he's not going to tuck it and run it. Could he? Yeah. But he's going to try to do something. He's going to give his guys an opportunity to catch the ball. So, and when you do that, you put the ball in harm's way. And you know that better than anybody. So, 4, you don't necessarily, and we've seen this, you don't necessarily have to get the sack to cause a turnover. Or you don't necessarily have to drag him down for that to be. So I look for, can they get pressure with 4? This offensive line is not very good. So if there was ever a game, and we say this all the time, starting up at Buffalo Bills game, if there was ever a game where the Buffalo Bills could move forward and then take the next step, people were talking about, is this the game Allen throws for 300, or this is the game that this guy does this? And I don't really care about those types of stats. Everyone always says you only care about the win-loss column, but
Right.
you have to take the wins and losses with not necessarily a grain of salt, but you have to say, listen, okay, what did they do that was positive in this game? What did they do that moved forward in this game? And what are some of the things that they can get better at? So, as far as I go, because I know we're about near the end of the stream here today, and we thank you guys for joining us today on this beautiful Saturday morning, which is frigid outside. I got to call a game in this, Paul. I got to call a game in this.
Buddy.
36 degrees, and I got to call a game today.
People call that football weather. I don't think that makes me feel any better about what it is, but people call it football.
Yeah, there's no heat in the booth. So I'm going to be wearing my Undertaker trench coat today. So it should be phenomenal. It should be phenomenal today. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Ryan Rayburn.
Go ahead.
I think it's a big one. Would you assign Trey to Beckham or Landry? We talked about this a little bit. They all went to LSU together.
We're on opposite sides of this.
Yeah.
And I think we should end this stream with a bet today.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
All right.
We'll leave it to the chat to decide the parameters of the bet, but I think
that's dangerous. We know that's dangerous.
You know that's dangerous. Okay. Yeah, I think Mark Kitchens doesn't really look at the stats. Have you seen Reddit recently? They're all hating on Star. Yeah. I don't really go on Reddit. But
well, your film room talked a little bit about Star.
Yeah, we went and Mike. Here's the thing with the film room, and I just want to go over this real quick. The thing with the film room is that Mike is not a Bills fan. He just looked at the tape objectively and said that was awful, and he knows from Star in previous years how well he plays. So maybe that tilt needs to go. That tilt 4-3. Chaz, I'm calling the Brockport football game over in Brockport is playing Alfred State. I want to say today. Yes, they're playing Alfred State. Sorry, I was doing all the research for it yesterday, and I just lost my mind. But the bet, OBJ versus Landry. You think he's going to be matched up more on Landry?
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be matched up more on OBJ.
Okay. Yep.
So we can, through advanced statistics, we could find out who he's lined up on more.
We sure can.
So if he's lined up on Landry more, you will win the bet. If he's lined up on OBJ more, I will win the bet. #Nation, you guys decide the parameters. Either you can comment on any of our videos. We'll get it. You can comment on any of our videos what the parameters of the bet are. If Paul wins, if I win, what's going to happen? So thank you for joining us this morning. Paul, you got anything to add?
I know that we talk about a lot of things on this channel. I'm telling you right now, this is the one game out of the next three that I'm a little nervous about. The Browns are a disaster, but don't let their record fool you because they've got outstanding athletes on that team. The question is, do they believe they can win? And I don't know if they believe they can win as a team right now. And if they don't think they can win, then Buffalo will beat them. But if this team finally figures it out, they could be a really dangerous team. So this is the one out of the next three that's really giving me some pause. I think this game could either be a really fun game where there's just, defensive stops and scores all over the place, big plays everywhere. Or it's going to be a 9-6 game and they're just going to grind it out. And there's going to be a ton of turnovers and nobody's going to be able to move the ball. It's going to be one of those two, either big plays all over the place or it's just going to be a grinder. And I don't know which one it's going to be.
Ronald NX, if Paul loses, he gets a big old cup of pumpkin spice coffee.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay, so #Nation, that guy over there, that guy's Paul. I'm Mario. Thank you for joining us. The next time you will see us will be during the post game tomorrow, but roughly around a half hour after the game is over. Please go join Joe from Believers Talk for the play-by-play of the game. On Sportscaster, and be sure to head over to Believers Talk on YouTube and give Joe a sub if you guys haven't given him a sub already. We gotta get him to 1,000 so he can start doing mobile. Ronald NX, Kratz, thank you guys. Caracas. Chris Stratton, mid 80s and rainy in Melbourne, Florida today. You guys are lucky. It's
Derbies at S Jenny Cream Ale. Quick story about that. Brought a 12-pack of Jenny Cream Ale when we called the play-by-play the first game, and that 12-pack was gone by the third quarter.
I don't look. I just drink.
You definitely did that game.
I have a different kind of Dos Equis commercial in that respect. That I always drink beer, and that includes Jenny Cream Ale. Never go thirsty, my friends. All right, we're out of here. You guys enjoy your weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.